Isn't there the recent lawsuit against the SAU regarding the procedure for right-to-know requests?
That's correct, Mr. Taylor's suit,
Yes.
which is ongoing.
While it is true that the actual for 15-16 was $0, the actual for 16-17 will not be $0
We don't
because
know
of
what that
that,
figure is yet.
because of that lawsuit.
Yes, that's correct.
And it is ongoing.
Yes.
Is there any ongoing in what way?
It's ongoing in that, as of this point, Mr. Taylor has appealed the decision that was in favor of the district, or excuse me, of the SAU.
So appealed to Superior Court?
Yes, so, but no, insofar as I know, no date, or anything, hearing has been held or date has been set to hear that, but we do know that it's ongoing.
So if the, if he's not satisfied with the decision of the Superior Court, the next step would be,
He does have the ability to continue to appeal it to the Supreme Court.
so the next step would be the state Supreme Court, which would be an even increased expense over what we would spend to defend it, his appeal in Superior Court, correct?
Yep. So we would have, if the district continues to pursue it, then we would have ongoing legal expenses associated with it. So.
Well, it's not a matter of the district or the SEU pursuing it, they're being sued, right? So it's defend it or just walk away, which doesn't make much sense to me. So, I mean, I don't, it doesn't make any sense to me to decrease the legal line to $0. In fact, it would make sense to me to increase the legal line, to be honest with you. Being in 17, 18, do we have any idea, if this were to go to Supreme Court, the length of time it would take to get there? I mean, we have some experience with that, right?
Dr. Metzler?
Yeah, our estimates would exceed $25,000 in legal expenses. We already have filed our rebuttal to the reconsideration, so that will be an additional cost. And in the event that he's not satisfied with that, after that gets settled, if we're going on, it would be in excess of $25,000, probably be more, probably closer to 50, 40s, somewhere around there.
So, and if it went to the Supreme Court, would it be the time, obviously, you can't look into the future, but it probably would end up after July 1st?
High probability that the budget that you're currently discussing would be the time that those expenses would be expended to continue that defense of the district versus Mr. Taylor's lawsuit, which he lost the first round. We're now into the second round. If it were to go to the Supreme Court, highly likely that those expenses would be in the budget you're currently discussing.
Yeah, because some of the bills would come out of this current budget, but we've already probably spent some. And then we flop over into the next budget.
I respect that, but I do want to hear some other voices here. Mrs. Ebersezi.
I'm wondering, the last lawsuit that the SAU faced, to my recollection, was Green versus the SAU, and I don't believe it started out that way. I believe it was changed to versus the SAU. I believe it started out as Timberlane. Am I correct?
No.
With that? No?
There were several defendants named in that particular lawsuit.
There were, okay. I'm wondering, was there a lag in the legal bills received from that lawsuit?
That was not an SAU lawsuit, it was a Timberlane lawsuit, so it's not really
okay.
pertinent to this discussion.
Oh, I'm
That's
sorry
why
about that.
we have, I would consider a healthy legal line to defend the Timberlane district against those kinds of lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an SAU lawsuit, which we don't, that's
But I think
a separate legal line.
I think to the point on the timing is that we don't have control over the courts. The courts will set their own schedule, they'll hear it on their own schedule, and nor do we have control on if Mr. Taylor appeals this and continues to appeal it, which he's very well entitled to, should he desire to, that it very well, to Dr. Metzler's point, it very well could, and it's very likely to be impacting on this budget that we're reviewing.
Okay.
So, Mrs. Green.
I've said from the very start that the board should have exercised authority over this pursuit of litigation and stopped it right at the beginning. There was no reason this went to court. We have a trivial amount of money on the line if we were to pay Mr. Taylor's legal fees. Trivial. Instead, for some egotistical reason, we feel compelled to spend $50,000 of taxpayers' money. We can just walk away from this and leave it alone. There's no reason we need to pursue this in court, none whatsoever. There was never a reason to begin with.
Okay.
We could have easily settled out of court. We could have easily just walked away, given him everything he wanted, no legal fees whatsoever. Now, he's been awarded some legal fees. They're trivial. And we're going to fight at the Supreme Court level and spend $50,000 of our taxpayers' money? Are we out of our minds?
So, I need to address a couple things here. We are discussing the budget. We are not discussing the merits of a suit that the court, number one, has already decided, okay? The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the line items and the amount of the budget, and not the merits of a lawsuit, okay? So let's be very clear about that.
And
Dr.
can I have a
Metzel.
little latitude here?
A little bit.
A little
but
bit of
please.
latitude, yeah. So just so Mrs. Green's not misleading the public again, Mr. Taylor if he wanted his legal fees, he had them. He wasn't happy with that, so he appealed. He's suing us. We're not the ones taking the initiative here. It's Mr. Taylor is suing the SAU, and he wasn't happy with the finding, and he had his legal fees, and he didn't want them. All he had to do was file an affidavit, and we would have paid them nicely. Instead, he wants more. So he's the one dragging the SAU back
All
into
right.
court.
All
So
right.
there you go.
We're going to wrap up this discussion, because again, this is on the budget, okay? Proceed.
As it pertains to the legal services line,
Yep.
I feel that Mrs. Green is in conflict of interest discussing it and should recuse herself from any conversation regarding it, since she does have a personal relationship with Mr. Taylor. And I would ask that we could please call the question, and if
Okay.
that is acceptable, then I would like the question repeated.
Okay?
Did you have a motion?
So Ms. Abrazizi has called the question, okay? So let's make sure that we understand the motion that's on the floor. Ms. Belcher?
The motion on the floor was made by Mrs. Green to make the bottom line of the proposed 2017-18 budget reflect a balance of $1,897,869, and that was seconded by Mrs. Dugan.
Okay. Okay, the question's been called. The motion is clear to the members, I believe, at this point. All those members in favor?
Of calling the question?
What's that?
All those in favor of calling the question?
Yes. All those calling the question, right? This is to end debate and the move to the vote on it. This is not on the motion that's on the floor. I'm simply made clear what it is we're talking about. All those in favor of calling the question? All those opposed? Okay, that does not receive, the majority that it needed. So,
Just want to get that last vote. The four individuals
I'm sorry?
who opposed
The four, if we could get all those opposed one more time. It's all right.
Mrs. Green, it was Wayne, Ray, Stephanie, and thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Yes, Mrs. Green.
Thank you. I'd like to respond about a so-called conflict of interest. I have no interest in this suit whatsoever, except an intellectual one, like everyone else does. There's no conflict of interest there whatsoever. And I'm certainly not going to recuse myself. And in discussing the budget, I think it should be very clear to the board that we need to control the litigious nature of our SAU. We, as a board, need to assert authority. Here, we also have somebody, the superintendent applied for an injunction. When are we going to say this is our domain? This is our decision. This is not the superintendent's decision. It's our decision if we want to spend taxpayer money to go to court.
This is
Point of order, she's out of order again.
This is about the budget.
No, it's not.
This
You're making
is
claims.
totally
True.
about the budget.
Enough from the members. We are discussing the numbers within this budget, okay? And again, we're not discussing the merits of a suit or lack thereof or whatever, okay? We're discussing this particular motion, which relates to the bottom line number, okay?